But anyway, what we'll do, we'll get started in the meantime, and as people come in, that's fine. We'll go from there. I'm going to read today's opening prayer in English. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So we are starting on Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26.
And you know my standard question.
Uh-huh. Okay.
What page?
It's 1417.
Thank you.
It makes it easier, I guess.
Yeah, it does.
So, Michael, I'll ask you to, why don't you read verse 26 through the end of verse 32?
32 here. Verse 32.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, this day I set before you blessings and curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I enjoin upon you this day, and curse if you do not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn away from the path that I enjoined upon you on this day, and follow other gods, whom you have not experienced. When the Lord your God brings you into the land that you are about to enter and possess, you shall pronounce the blessing at Mount Gerizim and the curse at Mount Ebal. Both are on the other side of the Jordan, beyond the west road that is in the land of Canaan, a land of the Canaanites, who dwell in the Arab near Gilgal by the
Terebinth.
tributaries of Morah. For you are about to cross the Jordan and enter and possess the land that the Lord your God is assigning to you. When you have occupied it and are settled in it, take care to observe all the laws and the rules that I have set before you this day.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Marty.
So we've mentioned this before, that a curse is in a lot of the older ancient contracts, that if you don't follow the contract, something bad will happen. Okay? That is what a lot of the academics say. But the word curse can be taken by some to be more dramatic. Hi, David.
Hello, finally back. I had to do stuff with the my internet router, which I shouldn't be doing on Shabbat, but I had to anyway.
Yeah, well, you can't get on otherwise.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're on Deuteronomy 11, verses 26 through 32. And
Oh,
Michael has just finished reading. And we'll come back to what you brought later in today when we have some extra time.
okay, sure.
Put some time aside for it. So we're talking about blessings are we take them very lightly sometimes. If you what are some blessings that we think of when we hear the word blessings?
Well, there's the Hanukkah blessing, there's the Shabbat blessing, which I did just last night, and there are blessings for when you're ill, there are blessings for when you recover from illness. There are blessings that you give when your wife has died. There are all kinds of blessings, good ones, not so good ones, and just all kinds of blessings.
Okay. So you mentioned a few of those. Uh, any other blessings come to mind?
Everything. That food, excuse me,
That's
food,
okay.
water, air, everything from God is a blessing.
Yes.
It doesn't have to revolve around a holiday or a festival or an event. Just constantly knowing that everything is a blessing. I look around and I think my life had I and it's funny, it's the exact opposite of what it was. But I am so blessed today with absolutely everything. And it's the simplest life I have found for myself. The more simple my life, the better. That everything is a blessing, every
Yeah,
second.
I agree. I think that uh, uh, Mary Ann is absolutely correct. Every you get up in the you take your first breath in the morning is a blessing. Uh, in other words, uh, I understand what David was saying, and
Hmm.
what David was saying was absolutely right, was absolutely correct. However, I think what you're getting at, Marty, is is just the blessing of putting one foot in front of the other. Be able to do that is a blessing.
Yes. Every
To
little thing that we take
to
for
uh,
granted.
to able
That's
able
right.
to open your eyes and see the first thing in the morning is a blessing. In other words, what Marianne was absolutely on the right track. So was David. So I don't want to minimize what he was saying, but
Very
I
good.
think
That's exactly
I think
right. There
what
are different types of blessings. That's right.
yes, it's your very life and everything that flows from your life. Everything is that's a blessing. Everything.
Thank you. Yes, Marianne.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think the difference is like what David said, God is giving us strength. He's giving us hope. He's giving us
Yes.
whatever we need to move
Yes.
on. God is giving us a blessing. And by being aware of all of this, we are thanking Him for endless blessings. Yeah, because
See,
as David said, those are very difficult things to deal with. And sometimes people don't have the strength or the energy. But the way I hear him, he's saying God is giving you what you need. Just hang in there and trust Him.
Right.
What I'm saying is a little bit different. It's saying, thank you for giving me everything that I need.
Ah,
I
very
so I
good.
think it goes both ways. God blesses us. I mean, I don't really think I could ever bless God, but I can certainly thank Him for innumerable blessings, time after day.
yeah,
That's how I see it.
this, if I may say this, Marty, uh, this is what I feel very badly for atheists. People who are atheists miss that point because sometimes, and I speak for myself, I I have an issue, and where do I turn? Where do I turn to get some solace, some support? And it's my thought that God is with me, one way or another. And when I'm going for a test, a medical test, medical appointment, I say throughout my appointment, God is with me. I have no fear. And it helps me. It's very helpful to me.
Okay. Now here's another question. That's very good, Michael. And Marianne, you were right on target. David, you were right on target. There are different ways of looking at everything. It's important to understand all of the things and the little things. And that's if you sometime when you have one of the prayer books on hand, open it up and look at for daily prayers, and you'll suddenly see what Michael and Marianne were saying are exactly what starts the day every single day in the morning prayers that are offered.
And
So,
there's also a prayer.
and then David is correct from the standpoint of Torah, because of uh, the holidays, the sacred days that are very. When you say holiday, it's not a free for all. It's a holy day. Okay, that's the origin of the word. And so all of the holidays that we celebrate are for reminding ourselves of certain things, like remember the Sabbath, remember the Passover, remember Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. You know, all of these different things that uh, we are told to remember. Okay, now, and
It's
we had that
also,
discussion before.
it's not only to remember, but it's to keep.
Right. So a blessing is something, and I think Michael said it, and both of you said it, Marianne and Michael said it. A blessing is something that is given. Ah, so 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 when you are saying thank you, uh, it just means that you understand where it comes from. Now, does God need a blessing? We have prayers that always start. You know, Baruch atah Adonai. You know, it bless you for. So, why is that? Does God need to be blessed? I mean, He's all powerful, and He's all around us and everything. He knows everything, and He does things we may not understand what He's doing, but we still bless Him. We still say, what is the blessing? Why are Jewish prayers set up that way?
Say, can you repeat that last comment, please?
Well, why are the Jewish prayers set up that way with always blessing God? Does God need it?
No, but I'll say it like this. One good turn deserves another.
There you go. Very good. Very good. But uh, so when we bless God, is it because we feel we need to, or
Well, but I think with thanking, it's a with not only with thanking God. It's with
yes,
thank you, dear God.
yes, and so if God is listening at that time, he hears that and it makes him feel good. There's a midrash, and I don't know where it is. I wish Steve was with us. He has this book of midrash, and the rabbi would know it. It's been said that when we do our prayers, okay, it strengthens God. Just like when you receive, so the prayer is a sort of a blessing to God, if you will, and indeed, if you look at the way the structure of all the prayers, bless you, God, and everything, yes, it is. It is, and maybe that's the way that God said, "Oh, they got the message."
Well, in a way, it's a high honor uh,
Yes,
to
it is,
to turn, you know, pardon the expression, but to turn around and to bless God because um, it's a way of recognition in a way that you are so thankful. In other words, it's like you're lost for words. It's such a high record that you're recognizing that God deserves all that you have. And by saying God bless you to God, it really is it's surmountable. It's just a wonderful it's a wonderful thing to do. It's a wonderful thing to say. And I don't know what else I could say, but thank you, God.
Okay.
God bless. Back to
Sure.
God.
But so maybe that's oh yeah, go ahead, Marianne, and then I'll just chime in with something. Yes.
I maybe this is a word play because what Michael, I agree with Michael just said. It's the word blessing might be used in place of indescribable gratitude, indescribable thankfulness
Yes.
that I can't possibly thank you enough. So I'm saying, bless you, thank you for all that you've given me, good and bad, because I don't think there is any bad. That everything that happens either turns us to or turns us from. So,
And how many times, I don't know, uh, have any of us ever blessed another person? Uh, Say, God bless you to actually another person
oh, yeah.
for different reasons.
Uh huh.
And I think God looks upon that as a wonderful thing that one human being is doing to another.
Mm-hmm. I think you guys are right on target. I think it, so it's it's a gift. It's a gift, and you can interpret it in the word gift in many different ways. Each person may have a different idea about it, but a blessing is giving you something, giving someone else something. It's sort of like the word. In other words, it's implied in the word blessing. It is not a connotation. It's not in the definition, but it is implied in when you use the word itself. So yes, you guys are right on target, and so it becomes important because it 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 also dovetails into the word hineni. I am here. Okay. You can, and that is also what you're opening yourself up, as in Abraham's case. It's used multiple times in the story of Abraham. And so the word Hineni it really is implying not that you're here, but you got the message. Remember, Abraham has has received the first message of Lech Lecha, go, get up and go. And so when Abraham says Hineni, he got the message and he got up and went. And so when you say so, a blessing is a form of implies that you got the message. It was a gift, and you're saying thank you for it, and it's a good feeling. Yeah. Does God need to be blessed? That was my original question. And I told you that there's a midrash that says that the more God is blessed, the more God is strengthened. Any ideas?
I would say, to answer your question, I would say
And
I
why?
would I would say yes because God is not going to be taken for granted in a way.
Very good. Very good. That's it. You're recognizing God as a higher authority, higher power, whatever concept you want to use, and you're thanking Him for His beneficence. So it really is interesting. Now let's discuss the word curse. Okay, what comes to mind when you hear the curse? What would be the worst curse that you could think of?
The worst curse?
In the context of Torah?
That God would turn his back on me.
Perfect. Yes. Because then you would no longer be able to, it's up to you to, and you're taking a chance that you would receive, you'd still be able to find things and you do all right, but it would be, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good, Marianne. And Michael, were you going to add something to that?
No.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something. David, did you have any input on this?
Yeah, I think that the worst curse I can think of would be breaking the third commandment, and something that I'm guilty of from time to time, even though the Torah study people have said that that is not breaking the third commandment, but I kind of think it is. And and so I very much try not to do that much as far as I can. And it's a struggle that I've had all my life. But I'm working on it.
Well, that's, I think, the best answer that you can have, that you're working on it. Uh, very few people can say, I've made it. So most of us are working on it all the time. Oh boy. Okay,
Uh,
enough about that. Now, here's an interesting a comment, and this came up before because this is a repeat of what God has mentioned before, and Moses has mentioned before. The difference between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. They exist to this day. Okay. And both still have the representation. One is fertile, like Mount Gerizim, and the other very little grows on it, and that's Mount Ebal. I'm
uh,
I'm not smart enough. I don't have any geologic information on it. I've never bothered to look it up, but there's got to be something about those two mountains that are, and to this day, that's the example. So and when you see those things,
can I go back for a minute?
sure, sure,
Uh, uh, about turning your back on God.
yes,
It's well, everything is involved in that statement. In other words, if you do not follow God's law to the letter, all the 613 commandments, including the 10 commandments, you break that, you're turning your back on God. So I think it's all of it, everything.
it is very, and it's extremely difficult to obey all 613 commandments. Some people can and do, uh, but the vast majority of people,
Yeah, it's
not
just
easy. It is not easy.
you know, if that is the case, Marty, what you just said is absolutely the case, especially in today's day and age. You know,
Yes. And
very,
that's what
very,
we're
very.
being warned against. And that's what you dovetail beautifully into my next question. Okay. Why does the concept of idols constantly come up? We've discussed this before, but it's important since we're talking about blessings and curse and idols. They're all in the same breath, basically. Why is this? Why is the term? What else are the idols? I know they're physical idols that we can have, but there are other types of things we idolize that prevent us from doing good or taking action, but it detracts from it takes us away from what we know we should be doing.
But um, this goes to what what is studied on Yom Kippur
Mm-hmm.
when when it's stated that God could read your inner thoughts, God could read your mind, and God knows what you're thinking. And so when we talk about these idols of today, I don't think these people that idolize certain other people or particular things mean it in a religious tone, in a religious way. Uh, don't think of it that it's godly. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
save me. It's just something people do in a way that it's innocent and it's not it's not in a religious thought.
Yeah.
That's the best I could say it.
Or even spiritual thought. Uh,
Yes.
but yes, Marianne.
You know,
Um,
like what Michael's saying, our thoughts, sometimes we become overwhelmed with anger, with rage, with whatever, or other times we're overwhelmed with love and devotion. That the minute we're focusing too much on these thoughts, we're making them an idol. You know, my anger, my rage controls my life, not God. My love, my devotion to another person controls my life, not God. So I think that, at least for me, my thoughts, I have to monitor that I am not putting what I want, my pride, my ego, that I'm not putting any of this stuff ahead of God's will, which sometimes is difficult. But I at least I can recognize most of this today.
and I think so. It's just my interpretation, but I would throw in all of these things that that can make you take you away from caring for others. That make you feel good. Uh, yeah, you're the president of a club, okay? And it makes I'm in, and the thought goes through your, man, I'm in charge of this. And somebody comes along and challenges it, and then you're into a debate. It's not that important. What really matters is the communication between the two people. And this is what you see all around us. You see it in in lots of things that affect our lives. And you can think of innumerable subjects that can affect our lives. And sometimes there's a way to get away from it and to think about what's really going on in your own mind, as Marianne is addressing, and Michael, you've addressed it in a different way. But is it's something that's very important to realize. You have to step back, and rather being so much uh, thinking that you and I don't mean you as an individual, I mean everybody, including myself. We all do this. That there are times where we think our way of doing it is better than anyone else's. And then you realize there are multiple ways to accomplish the same thing. And so once you realize that, it that that should take priority and say, and watch the other person. And so then you know two ways or three ways or four ways of doing the same thing. And that's fine. And so we have to, sometimes we have to back away from these hard feelings that we have, but that's from us. That's our own ego that's directing that. And we have to always be on guard. I know I have to. So it's something that I think everybody runs into some difficulty at some level. And I think that's what the two of you are getting after. So that was it. And I think those are the key factors and Michael brought up in verse 32, take care to observe all the laws and rules that I have set before you this day. That is the summary of everything. And Michael hit the nail on the head there. That doing these things will keep you in a frame of mind. Think about them all the time. And that's why sometimes seeing the Ten Commandments in multiple locations is better than none at all. Because it's a reminder. Oh, wait a minute, I better stop and see, well, that's why the phylactery, it's not the Ten Commandments, but it's a reminder to follow the rules. And the same thing with the binding of it's the tefillin and binding all of your left arm. It's very, very important because these are the reminders. It's the same thing with the tzitzit. There was a whole chapter devoted to the tallis, way, way back in Exodus. The numbers of strands and everything, and why some are knotted and others are not. Those are reminders that have been built around us so that we remember to at least to strive to achieve the 613 mitzvot.
And as a side, okay, go ahead, Marianne.
No. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, I tried. Okay, thank you there. This is like a side note. This is something that I've been thinking about for some time, and that's the Ten Commandments. And I think in my thoughts that if you don't read the entire Torah, the whole book, and then continuous reading it, God had placed the Ten Commandments as a way to conduct your life. If you don't read everything, if you could live your life following the laws of the Ten Commandments and whatever you can get from each commandment, whatever you can derive from that, each one, you're living a pretty decent life. So there's a way out. In other words, I see it kind of as a way out in lieu of reading the entire Torah.
Mhm. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, uh, that is equally important to follow. But yes, but you know, Torah still comes before the every all of the other things, that the laws and things of that nature. But because the Torah encompasses it, but the laws, as you're getting into, they're very important in our lives, or should be very important, especially the first Ten Commandments, which has been interpreted by some as being for everybody, not just the Israelites, not just the Jews. It's for everyone. Yes, Marianne.
I don't mean this as a put down or an insult to anybody else's spiritual religious beliefs. I have noticed from reading the Torah and reading the Tanakh that it's very clearly spelled out. You do this, you do that, you do the other thing. That's not to say you'll get a reward, but you may not get as many problems as you would have otherwise.
Right.
That this is, it's confusing, it's difficult, but it's clear.
Right.
Thou shalt not, thou shalt.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question. You know, it's like a parent talking to a little child,
Right.
like a little 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid. You do this, you got to get punished. You do that, you got to get an ice cream. That I find this very, very, like I said, clear but difficult.
Yes.
And I see that in the difference with other religious beliefs.
Yes, I think that it's a very those you've had some very important things to say, Marianne, and also Michael. David has had his hand up for a while.
Oh, to be
Not for too long, but I wanted to go back a little bit to the idea of how difficult it is to follow all of the 613 commandments. When I was living in Denver as a teenager at the Jewish National Home for Asthmatic Children, I was taught that the Ten Commandments, which God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai, were commandments in the 613 liturgy, were commandments number 25 to 34. And I was over the years, I began to think that those commandments are of a higher order than the rest of the 613. I cannot follow all of the 613 commandments. I do have a daughter, but she is an adopted daughter. And the very first commandment, which is be fruitful and multiply, and essentially interpreted as get married and have children, I was not able to follow. My first marriage was not a happy one. And my second marriage, which was extremely a happy one, we ended up having a daughter, but we adopted her. And but anyway, I'm thinking that it might be impossible to follow all of the 613 commandments, but it was very important to follow the major 10 from 25 to 34.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. Yes,
And
maybe
and
it's that.
that's
Yeah, go ahead, David.
and
I mean, Michael. Go ahead.
Michael, yeah. I get mixed up too, so don't feel bad. Um, what to add a little bit to what Dovi just said, and that is, it's also said that our God is a loving and forgiving God. I think that could come into play with what Dovi was talking about. It's very, very difficult. However, I think God makes way when you think that way. In other words, if you're going to, you say, I can't do the whole 6 and 13. God is hearing that. And God is applying his own wisdom and understands that and forgives. And you can see that where does that really take place? It takes place on Yom Kippur.
Yes.
It takes place there when you atone. So, and at the time it's happening, there's whatever the 598, whatever that is, I couldn't tell you. And so, and you're aware of it, but there's no way around it. I think God has a way he will forgive. So there's God allows for these things. That's the best way I could say.
Yeah. He recognizes we're human.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Marianne, and then we'll move on.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's also an interpretation of the word. I have one son, but I have raised other children as a mother, as a grandmother, as an aunt. So that because they didn't come from my body doesn't necessarily mean they aren't my spiritual children.
Right.
And that, yeah, I mean, naturally, I have parents, but I've had people throughout my life who did, better parenting, parented, okay, that I lacked in other areas. So just because, Dim Smudge, I sent her a Mother's Day card first and foremost. She always came first to me as a mother. So that there are people that fill these roles, not just physically,
Right.
but spiritually and emotionally.
Very good. Very good. I appreciate that.
Before
Well,
we go on,
yes.
Marty, would it be possible for me to do a very brief quotation that I planned to do today?
Sure, I was going to do it towards the end, but that's okay. You go ahead, David, if you feel the need. That's fine.
Thank you.
It's just the four of us, so sure, we
Yes.
have plenty of time.
Over the last 3 weeks, I have seen 3 comets, of which they are all named Atlas, and I'm wondering if they passed a law that from now on all comets are going to be named Atlas for that program, but I don't think so. But one of them was the interstellar comet, and then there were 2 solar system comets that I've seen, which brings me to my quotation, which is from Shakespeare, from 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 one of his very earliest writings, from the first part of Henry the Sixth, Part One. The opening lines of that play: "Hung be the heavens with black, yield day to night. Comets, importing changes in times and states, brandish your crystal tresses in the sky." Thank you for letting me do that quotation today.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Um, so maybe it's a snowball fight in heaven.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. What we're going I appreciate that, David.
That's a good one, Marty.
It, anyway, anyway, wake up. We're now starting Deuteronomy 12, verse 1. And Marianne, that's on page 1420.
Okay. Uh,
So,
laws and rules.
so
No, I'm sorry. I'm at the
You
bottom
do
of the
this
page.
one, and then
Sorry.
David will take up the third reading that we do. Okay. Why don't you do verses 1 through the end of 7?
Would you
Okay.
like me to do that?
Mary Ann, and
Okay.
then you, David.
Okay.
These are the laws and rules which you must carefully observe in the land of the Lord, God of your fathers, is giving you to possess as long as you live on earth. You must destroy all the sites at which the nations you are to dispossess, worship their gods, whether on lofty mountains and on hills or under luxuriant trees. Tear down their altars, smash their pillows, put their sacred posts to the fire, and cut down the images of their gods, obliterating their names from the site. Do not worship the Lord your God in this manner, but look only to the site that the Lord your God will choose amidst all your tribes as his habitation, to establish his name there. There you are to go, and there you are to bring your burnt offerings and other sacrifices and tithes and contributions, your votive and freewill offerings, and the firstlings of your herds and flocks. Together with your households, you shall feast there before the Lord your God, happy in all the undertakings in which the Lord your God has blessed you.
Okay. Any comments about what Mary Ann just read? Okay, let's sort of uh, just discuss some of these things just a wee bit. Uh, it, it says that basically the Israelites must destroy all of the things that are worshipped, okay, and that are important spiritually for these other people. Any comments about that?
It doesn't show them how to replace it.
Not here, not
Well,
here.
yeah, like I'm new. Okay. So far, I don't see any way to replace it, but maybe they get to that.
Well, he's already mentioned what he expects it to be replaced with.
Him.
And that is what we just read in uh, verse 31 and 32. This is a sneaky way to go back. And it says because you're going to do this because you're going to, this is the purpose of your invading, but
Oh,
take care of all the laws and rules that I have set before you, because that's what's going to replace it. That's the replacement. Because you're going to still be worshiping God, following all of his words and his, the commandments. But you don't want anything to remind you of the past, what was there before. And it becomes important, because if you do, you may be swayed in your thinking. Now, some people can talk about these things and recognize their existence, but it doesn't bother their uh, their uh, feeling that God is the one God, and that's But there are others that they make room for the other teachings, the other things that are represented, and they start to say, well, those are just as they make me feel good, and they're just as important as God, and eventually it can be they're more important than God. So that is the uh, I think it blends it together Okay, that in order to do this, and if you think about it, everyone has had hardships. There's no way to get around it. That's life, but it's how you get around it. If it's what you've learned from previous experiences that may not have been good ones, but how did I get around it? Well, okay, I learned something. That's how I got around it, and it worked out well. Or, well, I haven't learned how to get around it yet. I've got to keep looking around and find something that will get me back to where I should be. Maybe that's what this is implying. It doesn't say anything about what I just mentioned, but I think it's implied. Any comments? There being none. Okay. It, verse 5. Would you reread that? Uh, verse 5. Would you reread that, Marianne?
Sure. But look only to the site that the Lord your God will choose amidst your tribes as his habitation to establish his name there. There you are to go.
Okay. So it's the Mishkan and the tent of meeting, where Moses always finds God to discuss things and to think on matters, to sleep on matters, to discuss with God, would be in the tent of the meeting. So there are places, but maybe there's more to this. When we say God lived here, where does God live on earth? When God comes down to earth, where does God come down to? What location?
God lives
He lives everywhere.
Okay. But what are the most important sites on the earth?
Where he's most
What
needed.
site?
Where he's most needed.
Where he's most needed. Well, there
now.
are three sites biblically that are mentioned. One we read before, and that is Mount
Horeb.
Moab, and yeah, Moab, and that's one location. Another is Sinai, Mount Sinai. That's where we receive all of these teachings. And then it's been also said Jerusalem.
I like to think that God lives in our hearts, all of us.
Yes, but that is true. But biblically speaking, and the scholars, they have each one of these arguments are correct. But those are the three that have been debated over the centuries. Let's put it that way.
And you have hospitals that are Mount Sinai.
Yes,
Why?
and
I,
also Mount Moriah. That's right.
and so you think, why are hospitals named Mount Sinai? There's, uh, I think there's religious and spiritual reasons for that.
Expand
Because,
on that, Michael. Go ahead. You're on the right track.
well, it's because I would say that based on what Mary Ann said, where he's needed, and and so you have a hospital
Hmm.
for several reasons. If people are not well, they're going through trauma, they're going through surgery,
Hmm.
and so God is there watching over all of that. God is watching over the surgeon who is going to perform the surgery
Mm-hmm.
to see that it's done correctly. God is watching over the patient to see that the patient is going to survive. Because there's a partnership between the patient and the doctor, a partnership between the patient and the surgeon, and so all of this, it comes into play, and so it's Mount Sinai where God lives.
And Jerusalem is called the city of gold, right? There are lots of cities of gold if you believe in Western, uh, not Eastern, but the Western world of Central and South America, the Aztecs and the Incas and several other tribes. They always spoke of the cities of gold. Okay, but in Judaism, the city of gold is Jerusalem. In and the so we're going to be reading why shortly, because it says so we have these three sites that are very holy sites. Each one has been for a different reason. Okay, we received the laws at Mount Sinai. We received the blessings at Mount Mora, and we and in Jerusalem, some ancient kings decided, oh, that's where we need to build a temple. And that created issues between the people who uh, were forced to live in Babylon versus those who had migrated to Jerusalem. And you have a Babylonian Talmud, you have a Jerusalem Talmud, because of the difference in opinions. All of you are correct that when you say this, the comment that God is with me. Yes, God is there. But where do we worship God? At one time, it was at the temples, and the temple was wound up being in Jerusalem. We had a portable temple, the Mishkan, for many, many years. But then it wound up being in Jerusalem. And then you have, David, I'll call on you in a second. And then you have, we had to have other houses of worship. The diaspora took people all over the place, Jewish people all over the place. And so they had to build their own sites for bringing a community together for worship purposes. And so that's just that. But go ahead, David. Why don't you
One
mentioned?
thing that this is reminding me of is Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, which I believe
Good
the
one.
first English language novel. And it discusses the journey of someone going from Earth all the way to Jerusalem. And during that journey, he actually talks about the stars, where the stars are going to be as, going all the way back to Genesis, where Jacob is promised that his seed will be as the stars of heaven. And I just was thinking of that and wanted to bring that up.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? So that was a little bit of history and geography, some literature. A lot of it overlaps there, it's interesting. And by the way, there are comments in Plout about some of this as well. And so if we want to, so would you like to go ahead, Marianne? Did we do 1 through the end of 7, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What any comments about this verses 1 through the end of 3? Any other discussions there? And then in verses 4 through the end of 7, okay. So this is what started my discussion with the different sites and like that. But any other ideas about that?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I see the purpose in this, and I see this in all great religions. They have an anchor. They have a
Mm-hmm.
temple, a church, whatever you want to call it. They have an anchor for people to look at, to attend. But I think in Judaism, just the idea of Shabbat, you don't need a temple. You can worship
Right.
any place you are at any time, and that all of the things involved in that are symbolic of the essence, the energy of God. Uh, that and I've always liked matzahs, but matzahs are good things, but they send a message that even though you couldn't finish what you were doing, I gave you everything you needed so that at the right time in the right place, you will. Uh, but again, being a foodie, that, and some of these, I mean, churches, synagogues, even I'll give it to mosques, are beautiful works of art. They really speak to a higher level, to a divine intelligence. But
Mm-hmm.
suppose you can't get there.
And
Does that
That's right.
exclude you from worshiping God? No.
Very true. Well stated. Yes, Michael.
uh, in regards to what Marianne was saying, uh, it's I believe it's absolutely true that you could worship at any time at any place. Uh, However, the importance of a specific location has its importance. Uh, if you go into a Orthodox synagogue, you will not see any fancy writing, architecture. It's very plain, especially at the beamer behind the rabbi that's speaking. It's very plain. And the reason for that in an Orthodox setting is that uh, you should keep your mind on God and prayer and not take a look at something fancy, and that should detract you from worshiping in a way that is commanded and demand in an Orthodox setting. Uh, Another point is uh, in the desert, we had the Mishkan and the portable sanctuary that was, of course, it was It was carried and it was erected, and there were very specific points on how it was to be made to keep its longevity through the traveling through the desert. And so we learned from that, I believe, that to have a place where to worship God is important as a community, where we go and we're protected from the weather, and we have this established place where we are not affected by anything, and we can focus and do our prayers without being disturbed by creatures, animals, weather, or whatever.
Okay.
I think Michael made a good point there when he said, as community, that
Right.
if we all run around doing this, but no sense of communal purpose or there's strength in numbers, okay, the
Mhm.
more of a community, the more strength you have.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned as a community. Just the,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And that is the main reason. And this has been discussed before, that it's a way of strengthening. We have to have 10 men. At some synagogues, they today say 10 people. But in Orthodox and conservative temples, it'll still be 10 men, because they will. That means that if most of those are married, you're going to have at least 17 people in attendance, and it's for them to conduct. You may have more women than men, but you may need you must have 10 men. But there are others in Reform and Reconstructionists that 10 individuals will be enough.
yeah. There's one other point I would like to mention, and this is kind of a side note, and that is about the way you go into a synagogue, the way you're dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go in with shorts and different outfits they wear. However, it is important. Again, I take this from the Orthodox. It's important that when you're addressing God, because that's why you're going into a synagogue to address God. You address Him in the way of prayer. So when you're praying and you're addressing God, it's important that you look appropriate when you do that, because you're addressing God.
For the most part, I would agree with what you said, but you have to make an exception for somebody who's poor.
Yes.
Not have
Well, I
that.
think that
But I've seen even the poor put on very newly washed clothing, and like that. It may otherwise be in tatters, but they still make the effort, when because this is a more significant, as you're pointing out in what you said, Michael, it's a more significant experience in their lives of being able to communicate with God.
yeah, Marty, the last thing that you said is the most important. That final that mentioning is really the most critical. To give an effort, regardless of your personal situation.
Right. David.
I wanted to continue a little bit on what Michael was just saying, and Marianne, and that is the simplicity of an Orthodox synagogue. I think it's not just the Orthodox. Our church of mine, where I was growing up, was conservative, but also very simple. And in fact, the Beth Shalom Temple that we're members of is also has a very simple background and background.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to point that out.
Good point. Good points, everyone. Uh, so suppose you're alone and you're whether you're in the desert, you're in a forest, you're alone in your home, uh, whatever, uh, and the Sabbath comes along. Is that still appropriate that you can conduct a service for one?
Yes.
Very good. Yes. And that's what you were getting after before, that it's what's in your mind and heart. That's very important. Very good, Michael. And so I think we're all saying something in different words, but I think that but we must realize that we're part of a community, and in numbers there's strength. And that's really all they're saying here. In numbers there's strength. And that's all I can say about it. I think you guys did a great job discussing that. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, David, you are on. Okay, this is a
Okay,
long reading for you.
at number, at verse,
Verse 8. Okay, verse 8, all the way to the end of 16. We'll try to get to that point in 15 minutes. We'll see what we do.
okay, ye shall not do after all that we do here this day. Every man whatsoever is right to his own eyes. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God giveth thee. Okay. But when ye go over the Jordan and dwell in the land which the Lord your God causes you to inherit, and he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so shall ye dwell in safety. Then it shall come to pass that the place which the Lord your God shall choose cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes, the offering of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God, ye and your sons and your daughters, and your manservants and your maidservants, and the Levite that was in within your gates, for as much as ye had no portion or inheritance with you. Take heed to thyself, that thou offer not the burnt offerings in every place that thou seest, but in the place which the Lord shall choose in one of thy tribes. There shalt thou offer the burnt offerings, and there thou shalt do all that I command thee.
Okay, keep going to the end of 16.
Okay, notwithstanding thou mayest kill and eat flesh within all thy gates, after all the desire of thy soul, according to the blessings of the Lord your thy God, which thou hast given thee. The unclean and the clean may eat thereof, as of the gazelle, and as of the hart. Only ye shall eat the blood, thou shalt pour it out upon the earth as water.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the beginning of this reading. And any comments about verses 8 through the end of 10? We had discussed this earlier. as far as safety and security. What about verses 11 and 12? Well, what has happened before? As in our readings about the Mishkan, and where they have to uh, uh, where do they have to bring all of the sacrifices,
The temple.
or the Mishkan? Yes. And God would tell them where it's going to be, and where to dwell, and that's happened every time when God. Remember, we spoke about the pillar of fire and the pillar of smoke, and wherever the pillar halted, that's where they would stay, and they would, and also, there are a few words about in the book of Leviticus. Then that's the site at which you will do your prayers, and offerings are brought there to be slaughtered, and as sacrifice. And the Levites will be the ones doing it. We've discussed that in the past. The Levites do not hold any possessions to the land. Theirs is all a spiritual connection to God. But everyone else, they have that connection to the land that they are given. Okay.
And at this point, we are at the point where the Jewish people are entering Holy Land. We're at
That's
this.
right. They're about to enter. That's right. And the you're going to be given a section of land, and not everybody can walk all those great distances to get to the temple. So there will have to be a site that God will be telling them in each one of these areas where they have to conduct a service. But the Levites will have to do it. That means the Levite clan is going to be divided up. We would like to think it's only one location, but it covers too large an area for people to. How can you get everything, do your work and everything, if you have to walk a week to get to the temple? And by the time you got home, you had to come right back. So, so these are, they're starting to realize that each tribe is going to have a responsibility also of conducting locations. And by the way, we're now realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's certain, but there's, for the weekly prayers and things like that, our discussions, yeah, time and place have to be taken into consideration. So God is taking that into consideration, and it, and God will help us figure out where it's going to have to be, where these are occur. But it, it's but there will still be a main temple. But it's going to be more difficult because some of the Levites are going to have to get out there and be divided up into other clans. If you think about it, that's the most practical way in order to be able to do everything in all the different locations. I don't know how far you can walk in a week, and
Not very.
at 3 mile at a pace of 3 miles an hour, and which is an average. It is it's pretty difficult. It's you can't walk several hundred miles in a week unless you do it day and night. But that's a physical impossibility. So just to mention some of these. What about so God will tell them where they should do this, and in verse 12, you will be able to be happy. You'll be able to rejoice before the Lord, giving thanks. And this is expected not only of you, but also your sons and daughters and your male and female slaves.
Yeah,
So every,
I
yes,
have
Michael.
I have a problem with that. So this is what I was looking at mostly. Reach, um, rejoice before the Lord your God with your male and female slaves. And I wish I could know the Hebrew, what
Yeah,
it
I
would
can't
say.
help
I
you there.
know, but I, I'm, I just have a problem with that. I would think it's your male and your male and female helpers rather than slaves. Uh, Maybe it's meant that way, but I just have a problem with the word slaves as it appears,
Hmm.
in English here.
Yeah, well, remember some of those slaves you've purchased, but there are others that have pierced their ear. They like working for you so much that they have become like
Well,
sort of
I
like a
believe
distant relative.
well, I think there's something about having a slave for 7 years and they have to be set free or something to that effect,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so uh, they were the Israelites, I believe, did not treat them as slaves. They were treated very humanely,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember that correctly in the Torah. And so after 7 years, because of the way they were treated, they elected to stay on
Right.
because if they were treated as slaves, they would not do that if they would really
Right.
looked upon, if they felt they were slaves. But they were treated hopefully like more like members of the family rather
Yes.
than a slave.
Well,
So
but they still worked for you.
they did.
Um, some people would say, well, let's call them servants, but no, they were still at that time the word slave still meant they were slaves. And
I
I
suppose.
understand where you're coming from. We've had this discussion innumerable times because it constantly comes up, and we so it but they use the authors here for whatever reason, and again, I don't know the exact Hebrew. This is another place where the rabbi would be helpful, or
Right.
Steve in his book. It would be helpful to because there are different nuances, and sometimes they may use the word slave, but it may be different in Hebrew. It may be two different ways of saying it.
Yeah, because remember, the uh, these people were slaves under Pharaoh. So when
Yeah,
you
well, that's why it's mentioned, and then they have the choice to make at the end of 7 years. Uh, and if they're working for you, but for yourself, it's you're supposed to treat them the same as yourself because you were a slave in Egypt. That's the memory of it. Yes, Marianne.
You know what Michael just brought up, and I don't remember where I heard it or I read it, but these people came from Egypt, okay?
Yeah.
And you have to take into consideration language, as you just said, Marty, language differences. That in Egypt, before the Exodus, slave was actually kind of an honorable position that you like. We think of slaves, oh, they're beaten, they're starved, blah, blah, blah. But slaves are a very valuable commodity. So, as you said, they're going to treat them as well as their horses or donkeys or anything else, that they're valuable to them. They're just not, well, go wash the floors or something, that they're not
Right.
looked down upon, but rather respected for their energy and their effort.
Very good. Very good. I'm going to ask everyone if you want to stop here or do you want to go on to finish verses 13 through 16?
Well,
That could take about 20 minutes more.
You're away with me. I'm
I,
fine.
I made it. I think God was with me for this session because I made it through this long without getting up and putting drops in my
I
eyes.
noticed that.
You notice that? And so I
Yeah.
think that God was here helping me out, which I'm very thankful for. God bless God. So
Oh,
I'm going to bless God now for doing this for me.
sure.
And I don't think I want to push it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so if everyone is in agreement, we can stop here and we'll take up on verse next week on verse 13.
You
Okay?
promise?
And it may be interesting to before we meet, just think about, you may want to read it just before you get on or something like that, but think about some of the ideas that come to mind and it'll be interesting. The discussions will be a little different, maybe. We'll see. Well, Shabbat Shalom, and
Shalom,
everyone have a healthy week. And Michael, I hope Betty is doing okay. And
Well, Betty just suffered another situation.
oh
And
my, what
yeah,
happened?
she broke a toe on furniture in the bedroom at night. She hit the leg of a piece of furniture and scared me because she kind of screamed out
Oh, of course.
and it scared the hell out of me. And so I'm still, and she's hopping around with everything. God bless her, but she's a trooper.
It'll be okay.
Yeah,
If it doesn't really need to be X-rayed or anything, but just so she doesn't bend it as a reminder to just take a little gauze, wrap it around the
yeah. No,
two
she has
toe,
experience.
last
She's
toe.
done it before, so she knows
Oh,
what to
oh.
do. Yeah, she's a step or two ahead of you.
She needs, but she hasn't learned to wear her slippers at night.
Honey, I got news for you. Don't
That's the moral to this of the story. Oh, golly. Well, I hope she feels better. I've
thank
had
you.
that happen to me, and I learned my
I
lesson.
had it done. I had it. I that
Yeah,
happened.
it's a very common injury, but it's crazy when it happens. Anyway, everyone, please have a very good week, and I will see you next week, and we will pick up at this location and go from there.
Yeah,
Yes,
Marty, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much, and blessings to Susan.
thank you. Thank
Continue blessings to Susan.
God bless you
Mary
all. And
and
happy birthday
Pete,
coming up on the 14th. So
Excuse
another
me. Uh, yes, Hanukkah comes up soon. That's right.
yeah.
Very good. So enjoy it, and uh, it's just going to be a lot of fun for everyone. But anyway, you all have a very good time. Shabbat Shalom. Going to sign
shalom,
off now.
everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, gentlemen.